Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Monday, November 11th, 2024. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can support us for $247, $10. Get your name in the video credits, early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, and more.
Follow us on Blue Sky.
Yeah, go to Blue Sky. I post stuff every now and then, but I can't go on social media because it just gives me anxiety and I have to take my blood pressure meds. So go there, follow us, but you're not going to see anything. Very rarely. What was I going to say after that? Oh, so I'm working on Metro Awakening review. Right now, came out a couple days ago. I was able to get a review copy. So I'm playing that. I'll have more to say about that next week. I think I'm going to finish my first playthrough tomorrow and then maybe start a second. I don't know yet. But yeah, I'll keep everybody posted on that. There will be an update for something exciting in the Patreon update this week about an interview I'm going to have with somebody. I will tell you guys about it after the show. But until we get closer, it's not someone you guys know. But until we get closer...
He goes to a different school.
Sorry. I didn't expect that.
It wasn't that funny, really. You just wanted to make me feel bad. It's a funnier brother. There's a funnier brother right here, everybody.
Yeah.
Exciting interview that I'll talk about in the Patreon update, and that'll be later on in November, so we have that scheduled. Cool. Okay, Halo 2's 20th anniversary is today.
Yeah.
They released the... there was like a big update, not a huge update, but like demos released for the Master Chief Collection, and one of them was the E3 level. That wasn't the famous E3 level with the Covenant artillery cannon and the battle rifle that shot one round.
Is that on like a bridge in New Mombasa, or was it a highway?
There's a little bit of both.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a bridge part. I played through it. I think maybe you're on a small bridge for a bit. But it's mostly like street combat and stuff like that. And that's the one that ends with Chief being surrounded by elites. And then, bet you can't stick it, you're on. And he pulls out the plasma grenade. In an instance where he definitely would have died because there's like 6 elites with plasma swords.
I don't know. He's got one plasma grenade.
And an SMG.
Yeah.
He dying. I played that today. So I think what I want to do is, if you guys, I'm still playing through Dragon Age Veilguard, and I'll talk more about that maybe next week. But if there's a game that you guys played recently that you were burning to talk about that first, and then we can get into some Halo 2 discussion. What do you think?
Sure.
Is there a game you guys want to talk about?
I could talk about Final Fantasy a little bit.
Go ahead.
I did start Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, something that has been, was it 8-9 months coming?
I don't remember when it released. Yeah,
it was like February or March that it was released. But yeah, I've been itching to start it for months now, and I talked about it with you guys before the podcast and how I haven't really been able to get any games out of the way from this year, and so I forced myself to start it up, and immediately hooked again into like the world of Final Fantasy VII, and I never thought about it with the remake, the first part of the game, because I think that we were just kind of figuring out what it was going to be. We didn't know if it was a true remake or like a reimagining, etc. But with Rebirth, what I think only a couple hours in is that they've done such a way better job of characterizing these characters that we've known for so long. I've always had a problem with Sephiroth as a villain, because in 7, his motivations aren't necessarily wishy-washy, but the way that the translation is, the way that it's presented to you in text format, although you can make it all up with your imagination, it's kind of just short and simple. So I didn't feel like there was much depth with him, and he kind of seemed more like a whiner than anything. But in Rebirth, within the first 2 hours, there's already so much, I guess, nuance in not just the performances, but how he reacts to what he's seeing when he finds out about himself, and what causes him to kind of break. So it's kind of given me a new appreciation for Sephiroth as a villain so far. So I'm very excited to see what happens with that. The voice acting is stunning. The voice actor who does Cloud was really impressive because they do a flashback like 5 years beforehand, and he has to perform Cloud, but as a way more chipper person and a way more younger person. And he kind of nailed both like aspects of that, like delivery wise. So, and it's Sephiroth and Tifa and everybody's just knocking it out of the park with the voices. The gameplay is really, really good. And I don't remember in the first game this happening, but when you dodge, now when you come out of the dodge, you kind of do an attack. So you kind of have like an extra like hit if you want to like maneuver yourself, which is helpful. But I was getting a lot of, my coworker was talking to me about how bad the game looked, because I guess Final Fantasy VII like suffers a lot from anti-aliasing, like the jaggies that you'll get. Yeah, apparently. I haven't encountered any. Well, there was one or two spots where I've encountered something, but I wasn't really bothered by it. What I am bothered by, though, is that this game has probably some of the worst audio mixing I've ever heard in my life. And it's quite distracting, because I will be walking towards my objective, and Sephiroth is hanging out with you like at the start, because it's like a flashback. And it's like I can barely hear what he says. But if I like turn like just slightly to the left or the right, all of a sudden he's like 10 times louder than what he needs to be, like louder than everybody else. If you're walking through a town, everybody's voices are fighting with each other to like get the main.
Oh, that's weird.
Not the main say, but like just because you're walking nearby like 5 different people, everybody's saying things at once, and the audio keeps like going up and down. I don't know, like I can't vocalize it correctly because I don't know like terminology, whatnot, but it is not great so far. It's good enough in the cutscenes, of course, but like in the open world, it's a little weird. I've talked about it before a couple times, but they did say that they used AI a little bit for like the lip syncing to specifically help with that. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has 3 different types of scenes, I guess. There's actual like the actual CG cutscenes. And then there's kind of like this halfway point between gameplay and CG cutscenes, or just cutscenes in general, that just look really good still. And then there's like the gameplay portion.
Yeah.
And so
where you're still on your third person camera as people are talking.
Yeah. And you can tell the quality is just like a little lower because you're actually playing and whatnot. But the cutscenes and then the mid cutscenes, as I'll call them, with gameplay and like visuals, the lip syncing is, in a good way, kind of frightening because it's really good. And there were times where I was like catching myself just staring at their lips because I was trying to find something wrong. And it was it was Uncanny Valley is what it was. Like, it was so good. It was kind of like, that's weird looking at it from a digital character. So,
scene in cartoons where it's like a close on the character's face and it's actual mouths talking.
Yeah, it was close to that.
SpongeBob.
So it was really cool, but also really, really weird to see. I have barely gotten out of the first like opening section of the game, so I am quite excited to get back to it. So I hope I can soon. After that, I've been playing more Vampire Survivors, which I unlocked the last Castlevania character, which is really cool. I'm going to spoil it here if you guys don't mind, because I'm sure you guys don't. But there's a couple rooms that you can go to, but nothing is there. Nothing happens. So I assume that you need somebody else or something else for something to happen. But the last character I unlocked was Richter Belmont, who for most people is the best Belmont. But when you use him and you go to Dracula's room, nothing is there normally, but when you go to Dracula's room, it starts the opening cutscene of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Like, it locks the camera to that.
Oh, cool.
And it does the opening scene of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And they got Neil Newbon and Sungwon, he goes by ProZD, to voice Dracula and Richter Belmont
No way.
for that little tiny section.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is very cool. And it's kind of a pseudo, it's like a jab at everything because it's Neil Newbon as Dracula is just kind of like, you come into my house, you fuck up my shit. Like all my demons are in here. They're not bothering anybody. And you're just kind of like, I'm being a little exaggerative when I'm talking, but
It's got a point.
yeah. But Richter's just like, yeah, no, it's time to like end this. And he's just like, I'm just hanging out. Like, what is your problem? But after that little sequence happens, Dracula kind of makes this like, well, I'll show you what I can do. And it does this thing where you unlock Dracula, like to play as him. But Death comes down and is like, wait a minute, no, that's not how this is supposed to work. Like Dracula's supposed to kill everybody. And so you have to fight Death.
Oh, awesome.
In this like cutscene, but it does, you played Vampire Survivors enough to where it kind of does that weird like glitch out effect.
Yes.
And then like it does that same thing here.
Okay.
Because it's, I guess, not supposed to be happening, or I don't know what they signify or intend when they're doing that. But then you have to fight Death. I haven't beat him yet, but after you beat him, you unlock even more characters to unlock and play as. So that's exciting. I'm waiting to get to that.
That game has an insane amount of content.
It does, yeah. And what sucks is that like sometimes I always forget because I get so enthralled in playing it that I forget that when I achieve my goal, I can just quit. and I end up just kind of sitting there and letting it play till it runs. So I'm excited to finish that one of these days. And then I am almost done with Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. It's very, very Castlevania heavy conversations I'm having, but I'm in Dracula's castle. So it's the final portion of the game. And I don't know, there's a lot of people who are coming out and saying that Order of Ecclesia is one of the best Castlevania games. And I definitely think it's the best playing. And I think there's a lot of good about it. There's a lot more voice acting in the game that I didn't expect. Because they never really had voice acting throughout all the Castlevanias. But it's also the most difficult, but not in a good difficult way. You've heard the phrase artificial difficulty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something I would like to use in this situation, but they tried to do this thing where enemies now have resistances and weaknesses to certain types of weapons, and weapons now have like, a slash. Like if it's a sword, it's a slash. If it's a spear, it's a like, pierce.
Yeah.
Yes. But there's not really a good way. There's symbols to determine what is and what isn't, but they lean on it so much that they've had to create another system for you to switch between equips that you have. And I don't think it really works well. And I think it's a detriment more than it is something fun to play as. So I just kind of wait to find the thing that works and just work with that the entire game. So, but I think it probably has the best story and a couple revelations that I wasn't aware of in the mythology of Castlevania. So I'm happy to learn new stuff. So that's good. I also started the show, by the way. Nocturne, over a year and a half after it's come out. Fake fan over here.
Alrighty. Cool.
And at the end, I got a story real quick, or story real quick.
We'll
but at the end, we'll save
that at the end. All right. So Halo 2 came out 20 years ago today. That'd be 2004, November 11th. I kind of wanted to do like just a round table, sort of aimless discussion about Halo 2. I'll start off by saying that I think in some ways, Halo 2 and Richard. Well, okay. I was gonna say Halo 2 might be the first big console FPS. That would be incorrect though, because that would probably be GoldenEye. It's probably the first big Nintendo.
Yeah,
but the first big console
the
FPS.
one that works on consoles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I feel like Halo as a series was maybe the first one that sustained itself. I don't know if there were like in the early 2000s if there were Doom or Unreal tournaments on consoles yet.
Yeah, there were.
There were.
Okay. I think what you might be trying to say is probably the first FPS on consoles that was able to stand toe to toe with PC first person shooters.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like and it also set itself apart, and it set itself apart I think with Halo 2 because of Xbox Live. But also, the first Halo was like a remake. We talk about the parallels between Halo and Alien. and it's like, hey, here's all the fun stuff in the Halo universe, and you can kind of tell that they created Halo and they created the Covenant and they created the Master Chief, and you didn't know a whole lot about the universe. And then Halo 2 starts off, and you've got the Covenant, you've got the dynamics within the Covenant, a religious sect, you've got the Arbiter who is being punished for allowing the Chief to destroy the ring. And so you learn about all these dynamics within the Covenant and the certain dynamics within the UNSC. So all of a sudden it goes from a very Star Wars universe where it's Luke Skywalker versus the Empire, and it's, Darth Vader bad, Luke Skywalker good, and you have Empire Strikes Back, where all of a sudden it's, oh no, there's a darkness within Luke, there's light within Darth Vader, and things are more complicated than they initially appeared, and you learn so much more about the universe. So that's kind of what Halo 2 did, story-wise, then obviously multiplayer-wise, with it going... You kind of had a ranged weapon with the Whack-a-Smacker, the pistol, in the first Halo game. But I think with the battle rifle, it kind of went from a game where you would sort of just toss bullets at each other and grenades, and it became a game of like precision and timing all of a sudden.
Twitch shooting,
yeah. I remember watching MLG matches back in the day where it was just like, guys, we get into just 15-minute long fights because they were just peeking around corners at each other and it's like, instead of like charging at each other, it was like on a what's that map? It's not called Guardian. Halo 2 map. It's famous. Lockdown.
Oh,
you got
the Covenant.
Lockout.
Oh, Lockout. Yes, with the towers.
You got the BR tower and the sniper tower, and whoever controlled one, the other team controlled the other.
Which is strange for such a small map.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons that map is so good. But yeah, there's my incoherent start of the discussion. Go, you guys.
I don't feel like it. No, okay. No.
Mid. No.
I still have just that feeling in the memory of how palpable like the release of Halo 2 was. I think there was a sort of personal touch to the story because, as those who live in the U.S. or, Earth, just Earth in general. Sorry. I say U.S. and I don't know why I said U.S. because it doesn't even take fucking place in the U.S.
It takes place in Africa.
Yes, it takes place in Africa. Yes. The fact that it's just like these big baddies you fought in the first game, they're here now. Like you have to defend like the place you live against these guys, which I think, of course, the marketing like leaned on that a lot. But realistically, you're only there for like 2 levels, and then you leave there. But I think that really fed into like the concept of that really fed into the hype for the game, and along with the promise of having like online game play was probably the most attractive thing, because that was before that, of course, everybody who talks about Halo or lived through it, knew that kid at your school that you would go to once a month or once a week, 4 Xboxes, 4 CRT TVs, was it 4, 8, 12, 16 players? 16 players?
Yep. We were definitely among those kids.
So, having that change in November, the game coming out, and me personally having to, I don't remember begging much, but getting Xbox Live and being thrown into that type of world with, like, I think the second night I had it, because it was Christmas break, I don't think I went to sleep. It was like 5, 6 a.m. and my mom and sister were getting ready for like work or whatever. And like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm talking to people from Europe, It's just, you hear the kids, and their British accents just like talking to me. And it's before Modern Warfare 2, where everyone was a friend. Yeah, everyone was a friend on Xbox Live. Yeah, and as soon as Modern Warfare 2 came out, I don't want to talk to anybody online anymore.
Damn, Call of Duty ruined everything.
Call of Duty did ruin everything. It's the wrong game to play. If you want to have teammates. But yeah, having to experience all these new weapons that they had and how different they were, your customization of your Spartan was unreal. And I think, I don't know, for me, Halo 2 is probably like the pinnacle of like shooters and the time I had playing shooter games throughout my entire life. I didn't play, it was strange enough, I didn't play 3 a lot. So I don't have like as good as a memory of 3 that I do 2, but yeah, a different time and excellent game and still one of the best to ever do it.
Connor?
It's been a long day.
I remember the Christmas when we got it, so
Yeah.
I can recount that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, let's see if it jogs any memories for me.
Because we got an Xbox, it was probably 2005, 2000, maybe even 2006 before we got our first Xbox. So Halo 2 had been out a few years, and our experience was always playing it on other people's machines. It was never our own. But yeah, I remember Christmas morning when we got the Xbox and we got both the first and the second Halo, and we played through a huge chunk of the Halo 2 campaign up till the point that I remember us finally stopping was the mission of where you play as Arbiter and you're fighting the Covenant because I forget precisely what you're doing.
It's the rogue cell of the.
It may have been when you go to take on the Heretic. Yeah. But I don't remember if it's that specifically. But it's Xbox Live. You can't overstate Halo 2's effect on Xbox Live, but also Halo 2 had a certain I don't know, it built like a community at the same, because it wasn't just people playing. You had like the skulls were a secret. And at that time, the internet was there and you could definitely go online and read up on things, but it just was not as ubiquitous or easy as it is now. So like learning about the skulls was word of mouth. It would in multiplayer matches or whatever. Another thing was something like Zombies, right? Which is an official game mode now, but Zombies was popularized.
Manually having to change teams.
You had to manually switch teams and you got killed by a guy with a sword. And so it was like this community generated thing back when there really weren't like systems to facilitate that. So I think that's really interesting because that was sort of the groundswell of a lot of the stuff that we see today where, I don't know, whether it's modding or people playing sort of their own games or whatever, and Halo still has an active custom scene. All that started way back then with Halo 2. The campaign, I think a lot of people look back on fondly for a lot of good reasons. I don't know of the first three Halo games which campaign is the best. I think they all have really good features, and they all have features that aren't great. With Halo 2, I think the storytelling is really good. And I think the dynamics between the Chief and the Arbiter are great. The things that, obviously Halo 2 is elongated because you have like 5 or 6 elevator scenes or gondola scenes where it's just, you got to move from here to here, but the thing you're standing on is going to move real slow, and that's kind of it. But even with that, I think some of the best, I think Delta Halo is my favorite level in Halo 2, and that's the one where you drop the ODST troopers, and you do that drop onto the side of a cliff, and you have to fight up the cliff, and then the Covenant are dug in like ruins.
Oh yeah,
and you have to fight them off on that ruin. But that level was like vintage Bungie because you drop in, you've got a rocket launcher. You've got all these Covenant dug in, and then once you take the base, then Covenant do a counterattack. So now it's like if one of those turrets are still up, if you didn't blow it up with the rocket launcher, you can go to one of those turrets, or you can hide in the ruins and shoot guys with a sniper rifle or whatever. And once you accomplish that, you get a Warthog. You drive the Warthog around. A little bit later, you get a tank. So there's all these different ways that it throws that Bungie threw in there to change the level up. And it's very reminiscent of like the Silent Cartographer, because at the end of that level, that's the one where the Chief falls into the water and he's pulled up by the Gravemind for the first time. So that's when you encounter this. And again, making the universe of Halo a bigger thing. In the first Halo, the Flood were just these weird zombie things, right?
A parasite.
Parasites. They were, there was nothing about them being like transcendent or intelligent. They were just sort of terrifying. But then with the introduction of the Gravemind, all of a sudden it's this primordial, almost Lovecraftian being that you encounter that sends you off on a quest to stop the Covenant from detonating the ring. So it's like it even gives the Flood a certain like element of personality or autonomy, I guess, rather than just being sort of a force of nature, because the Gravemind is there sort of controlling their actions. With Halo 3 had the big battles, your big Scarab battles where you had a Warhog driving around and you got the Scarab above you. Halo 2 had the one encounter with the Scarab, but didn't have any it had big battles where there's like tanks and stuff like that, but nothing on the scale of Halo 3. And I think, if you were a bigger fan of that, then you probably had more fun with Halo 3. But I think Halo's storytelling right now, I'd say it probably reached its height with Halo 2. That's when things were really, really good. I haven't played through the first one in a while. I mean, the last time I played through the games was when Halo Infinite came out. So, but I'm pretty comfortable that Halo 2 is probably the peak storytelling, because not only does it introduce the rest of the universe, but it also puts so many things in motion. So yeah, I think to measure its impact is really difficult, and the nostalgia is real, because I don't think we have that kind of scene anymore, where, especially because LAN parties aren't really a thing.
Right. And that was a time where like gaming had the inverse problem, where people were excited about multiplayer, but they first and foremost wanted to play the story.
Yeah. Yes.
Instead of multiplayer. And that's very unique in that regard. And Halo 2 did a lot of things. I mean, you have it right there, Game Fuel. Like without Halo 2, there's no Game Fuel, because that wasn't like the Mountain Dew Game Fuel. Like, I mean, I know that's silly, but like now that's a staple every year. Like every holiday, like they have the Gamer Fuel that comes out. They had weird but cool things that helped hype up everything. Like, you had Breaking Benjamin like on the soundtrack, and played during one of the levels of like the game, and the stuff that they put into it, it kind of shifted. Actually, I don't think I can think of anything else before Halo 2. Halo 2 kind of shifted things into, I guess, a bigger blurred line between entertainment and like video games, like movie entertainment and video games, like how we kind of promote movies,
sure.
how we promote.
You're probably correct. Yeah. Because I can't think of, before Halo, I don't know of any, like you're talking about the Mountain Dew. Because Call of Duty wasn't being advertised on Dorito packages before Halo 3 was.
No, I don't.
Can't think of very many games that had sort of marketing pushes like that before release, before Halo 3. I'm sure there were probably games that did it. I'm sure Halo 3 wasn't the first game to be slapped onto a Doritos bag or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's actually a really interesting thing to bring up is, did Halo 2 change game marketing at all?
Yeah. Because
of the excitement for Halo 3 and it finally like breaking into, it had commercials during Monday. That Halo 3 commercial where, they're in the field and are there aliens out there? And then the chief is in the middle of a battle and he puts on his helmet. That whole commercial, I saw that during a Monday Night Football game. And so I don't know, before that, were there a ton of commercials for video games and primetime football games in a primetime spot? I don't know.
None that I can
maybe
recall.
Maybe big games, maybe like your BioShocks, maybe Maddens. I don't know.
A story like Halo 2 though, and its aesthetic and its like sci-fi futuristic setting is very easy to present to a normal audience, like through Super Bowl, through those types of commercials. I know it's not Halo 2, but famously that Halo 3 commercial with the faux interviews with soldiers, with UNSC soldiers.
Yep, Believe.
Yeah, right. Yes, that trailer. It's very. That's why it was so easy to blur those lines between entertainment and video games. Because if you think about the marketing for video games before that, it was usually just weird, silly promotions at like E3 or maybe like
magazines.
Or maybe like, a launch day opening in Times Square or something, like people dressing up as the characters, but like in this weird, booth babes and stuff like that. I know like it doesn't come close, but it did come into the store and I thought it was really interesting. I don't know where it went though. I think somebody bought it, but we had a sealed Final Fantasy VII phone card from Best Buy. That's like when you had to make collect calls and stuff like across country. Like it had a preset amount on it, and it was just Final Fantasy VII themed. It was really interesting to come in, but like, it was weird one-off crossovers that didn't affect the greater public or whatnot. But now with Halo 2, you had things that were right in your face, and I think that also has to do with Microsoft as well.
Yeah.
Because of their push into the
and just how big of a conglomerate to the Microsoft is.
I will say this about Halo 2's campaign: it does have a lot of really cool moments. It has the moment where the chief is out in space and you're fighting with the Ranger elites and everything is sort of muffled. It has the moment when you're underwater and you're taking that underwater ride in the elevator thing to where the prophet of regret or truth or whoever it is it has the moment with the scarab, right, where you jump onto the scarab. So they Halo 2, I think it definitely pads its runtime with the gondolas and the elevators, but they had like those really cool moments that were outside just giving you a tank and having you shoot a bunch of vehicles, which they definitely do. But there's also like the moments where it's like a curated sort of set piece that only happens like once, Halo 2, and Halo 2, like Empire Strikes Back, it ends on sort of a sadder tone because Cortana is left to the mercy of the Gravemind. And of course, it has the cliffhanger that everybody hated at the time because
I loved it.
Finishing the fight, and then it's like you get back to Earth and the game ends. And I think a lot of people maybe dislike that it sort of regurgitates another Halo. It's like because Halo is this mysterious thing and you destroy it. So it's like, okay, now time to deal with the Covenant, and then you get spat out back to space, and there's another Halo. So it's like they kind of redo the Halo's premise all of a sudden when you want to fight on Earth, and I understand that, But and I wish I need to look up some of the history on this because like the first big MLG game had to have been Halo 2. Was there another game? Was there other games that were bigger?
But beforehand, yes, there was like there was that one guy. He wasn't the first. He was the first esports personality. His name was Fatality. Like he had like the number one.
That actually sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But racing games. Yeah.
Before that, there were. I think one of his big games was it Unreal? I can't remember.
I remember Project Gotham Racing had a really big scene for a while, and that came out before Halo 2, I think, because it was a launch title for the Xbox. Project Gotham Racing.
Yes, it was.
So
MLG was founded in 2002. MLG became the first televised video console gaming league in the United States with their Halo 2 Pro Series.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Look it up, Connor. Connor, look that up real quick. It's according to Wikipedia. So Halo 2. If it wasn't the first big MLG game, it was definitely MLG like scenes. It was definitely one of the biggest and earliest, because of everything it did. Halo 2 did with like Xbox Live and whatnot. Okay, I don't know. Is there anything else we want to mention about it?
I was one of the weird people who liked the ending because it did that. It did that. It was the hook, line, and sinker of like, oh man, I can't wait for the third one. Like, that was
it hits that classic second arc, or second act fall that you need to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I remember disliking the Arbiter when I was a kid, and that was really
you
stupid.
were very anti-Arbiter.
I was anti-Arbiter because kids at school that were older than me were also anti-Arbiter.
Yeah,
because they were like, I would play as the Chief, not Arbiter, and I was like, yeah, that's right. Of course, as I grew up, I'm like, no, Arbiter's fucking awesome.
I mean, Halo 2 is just Metal Gear Solid 2 and another,
Son of a
Covenant.
bitch.
I only disliked Arbiter because I hated Covenant weapons.
Okay,
That's
I don't
valid.
blame you for that.
And I was like,
I don't blame you for that at all. Although I don't know, the brute shot in Halo 2, I think, is one of the most
that's the
useless.
grenade launcher, right?
Yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
most like useless weapons in single player. But did you ever do the Battle of Troy multiplayer game? You ever heard of this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so this is another one of those games
Yeah.
that was invented word of mouth, and everybody sort of had to agree on how to do it. So Battle of Troy was coagulation or blood gulch, right?
Yeah.
You set up, it was Team Slayer, and you set up where everybody had a brute shot with one magazine and an energy sword, and then you both had an agreement, no shields, so everybody was just squishy Spartans, no shields. And what you did was you fired the brute shots across the map, artillery style.
Cool. Awesome.
And then once both teams completely ran out of ammo, you met in the middle, whipped out the swords, and that's how the game ended like that. And you had one life. Everybody had one life. So it was Team Slayer elimination.
That's rad.
But
That's
like
cool.
the brute shot was one of those weapons where it's like, because it had this fun dynamic where it would arc and it had like the blade on the other end. I'm not sure if that gave it a stronger melee attack. I don't think so.
Oh, no.
But it really was like I don't know, I didn't ever think it was a super useful weapon unless you were using it for fun things like that, in which case it was a great weapon to use. Oh man, there was so much. Halo 2 also, like, they hid there was bunny super jumping, right? I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
Where you could like glitch into, there was like
A
the bugs,
corner, yeah,
you corner, and
and
it
you
would
just-
launch you away. And again, that was something where it was word of mouth, and you could do it on like every map. And people would cheat on Xbox Live and get pissed off about it and stuff like that. Modding was really big with Halo 2. There's that old cartoon on what's the name on Newgrounds? Chief and Arby, and it's like home run. Yeah, and the main villain in that cartoon is an Xbox Live modder who's just gonna like mod, and Chief and Arby have to like fight against him to stop him from modding it. Because like that was, I don't know why, but again, probably because that was the biggest game on Xbox Live. People learned how to mod Xboxes, and so you would get like cheated by people. Like I remember blue screening where the game would start and then it would bring up the title screen with all the players on it, and you were blue screened, which means you just had to sit there, but your character model was in game, so the other team could just go and spawn kill you.
Yep.
and that, so there was like mods that sort of energized the community scene, which today is facilitated by like Steam Workshop and whatnot, which I think is a good thing. I mentioned the bunny hopping. Machinima. Oh my god, it's all hitting me now. Oh god, zip me, Doc. Zip me. Machinima, like Machinima got its big start
because of
Halo 2 and Rooster Teeth, which
they started with Comet Evolved, but I think it really took its footing with Halo 2.
Yeah, with people doing silly videos with Halo 2 and messing around with that. It definitely helped by Rooster Teeth sort of popularizing the idea of like making a comedy show in game or whatever. But yeah, now the first Machinima was Quake. I do remember that. The first people, if I can remember correctly, the first there is like a first Machinima where people like wrote a script. And I believe it was Quake or Quake 2 where people did it. But I think Halo 2, again, popularized it. And Halo 2 came out 2 years before YouTube. YouTube was 2006, right?
I think so, yeah.
So, again, mediums of communication change. So if YouTube came out 15 years after Halo 2, maybe things are different. But 2 years after Halo 2 came out and everybody got the machinima down and everyone's figuring out how to record things, bam, then YouTube drops. And now all of a sudden you have this easy way to upload your dumb videos onto the internet. And that further energizes and creates feedback loops. This new human-like way of spreading content and spreading information that enabled you to think that, this is something I can do because it's really easy to upload this to youtube.com. So yeah, there was that. Okay, sorry. For a second there, I just unzipped a bunch of other...
it's all good.
All that, but like I guess what I'm trying to, because what I started with was incorrect. Like there are other big FPSs, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like Halo 2's release coincided with a bunch of other things happening.
It did.
Both in society. You mentioned the marketing, and with like machinima and YouTube, with community-driven stuff, with the success, with driving the success of Xbox Live. I don't know if there's ever been an FPS or maybe even a game outside of like Atari games, maybe a PC game here and there that impacted an industry or hoisted up parts of an industry as much as Halo 2 did in its early years. And I don't think that's crazy to say.
No, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, because after that, the only next two examples would be Modern Warfare 2, but that was more or less a paradigm shift in gaming culture and
target audiences.
Yes. And then, of course, Fortnite was the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. And before that, I think like Doom would be the other one.
Yeah, Doom and Wolfenstein. I mean, arguably Unreal and Quake, you know, due to 3D graphics cards and stuff like that. Voodoo graphics cards.
What were you laughing at, Connor?
No, I brought up First Machinima's Diary of a Camper.
Yeah, it was Quake.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, Quake already. Yeah. I thought the first Machinima was like Quake, but it was a joke because it was like a real estate agent showing prospective home buyers around a multiplayer arena. Like, yeah, this multiplayer arena is $150,000 on the market, and it's got lots of blood-stained walls, stuff like that. Anyway, do we have a favorite multiplayer map? How big of a Halo 2 multiplayer guy were you?
It was huge. Yeah, it was huge.
Do you have a favorite map?
They've all like, I've forgotten the names of all of them, but
describe it. We'll figure it out.
I was a big fan of the really small circular Covenant level inside the Covenant ship.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name.
I was a big fan of Zanzibar. Love Zanzibar.
Yeah.
And then I know there's another one. I'm actually trying to remember, and this was a point I also wanted to bring up, at least for consoles, extra DLC, the multiplayer maps.
Oh, yep.
Which, you know, which they kind of fucked up, because if you just bought one disc, you can give it to all your friends and just download it to
and that came out because that was a separate disc that came out a few years afterward.
Yes, yeah. That was a good one.
Ascension. Yeah.
Ascension was a good one.
Ascension, and so a lot of
I hated Backwash. Ugh.
Backwash was
Beaver
okay.
Creek.
Beaver Creek was what came from the first Halo, and it was the smaller coagulation. Let's just go through all of them. Fuck it. Burial Mounds, I believe that was one of the added
It was a
ones.
larger map.
Yeah, it was. It was.
No, maybe it was one of the Burial Mounds was weird because it was big and it had warthogs, but there was a ton of cover everywhere. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
There was like
I do.
debris and like broken buildings everywhere.
Coagulation,
which is your
classic.
Gulch.
I remember Colossus.
Yeah, Colossus is the one in the city.
Yeah,
and that's the one where it's got the big empty. It's got the two towers. one on the left.
It was a long hallway type level, wasn't it?
Oh no, is that what that one is? With the conveyor belts that are taking.
Yeah. I think that's what that
you're
is.
right. Yeah. Okay. No.
Yep.
No. Oh.
It does have conveyor belts.
There it is, right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like that one.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it was my favorite, but I did like that one.
Those things could blow up. I forgot how many maps there were. We don't have to go through all of them because I'm pretty sure some of them may have been PC only. I don't know if they did that.
It might have been, because there was newer maps.
Midship is the one.
Midship, that's right. Yes,
and Midship is one of the big MLG maps too, because Midship is perfectly symmetrical. I think.
Yes, it is.
We're not all were, but yeah, I think Lockout is probably my favorite.
Terminal was really good.
And Terminal's the one with the...
It's a U-shaped.
And it's got the train.
Yes, yep.
Is Terminal U-shaped?
Terminal is U-shaped because both of them start, or both of you start on two different sides.
I think that's a different one.
Is it?
You're thinking... Well, there's a map in the original Halo called Sidewinder, and it's like snowy, which is kind of has a U-shape.
Yeah.
Is Terminal like that? I don't remember. Headlong is the one I was thinking of, where you have... two buildings that are under construction, and then you sort of have like it's like
there's like a middle one. There's like a middle one, and then there's
it's like organized. It's like a city being built, and it's kind of organized in like a circle. In the middle, there's like nothing, If you go in the middle, it's just there's like a dead zone.
Is there like a half-made bridge
yes,
of
in
it?
the middle of that.
Yeah, I do like that one too.
Yeah, and so
Fuck it, I like all of them.
but Tombstone, that was from the first game too. But like their maps, I think what they did was they had some maps that had the symmetry to them, like your midships, right? And then they had maps that were they had certain like dynamics, like Lockout, where Lockout had 3 floors. So you were either you had someone above you or below you all the time, and then you had the 2 towers, and the BR tower and the sniper tower, right? And it was like which tower, if your team was in the lead, you were going to dominate one of those towers and make the enemy come to you.
Right.
Which means if you had to attack, you had to figure out how are we going to assault up this tower, and if you were defending, it's like how are we going to defend this tower?
Grenades, baby.
Yeah, there's grenades, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Halo 2's map, like Ascension is the same way because it has the big building and then it has the sniper tower, which is just like a ramp, right? So it's like if you defend that tower at the end of Ascension, it's a good place to defend. But the sniper tower has the sniper, so it's like someone picks up a power
Long
weapon.
map has a building on one side.
That's
that
right,
has,
I do.
A sniper point.
It
was used for a lot of like objective based.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like attack and
That was
defense.
probably my favorite one.
It's a good one. I forget what was it called again?
Relic.
Relic? Okay.
Relic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they eventually made it where that crashed ship was a Pelican.
Yeah.
Later on, but anyway, sorry. Now we're just talking about maps. This is riveting.
The good old days.
Okay,
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Good to move on to news.
I'm ready to go. Love Halo 2.
Okay.
Miss it.
Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Okay, so we got lots of interesting little news from Sony's latest quarterly investors call. Astrobot sold 1.5 million copies in its first 9 weeks. I hope that's good. I don't know if that's something that Sony considers a good or a bad thing.
I don't know. I'm still stuck in like early 2000s mindset, and I'm like, million sale, that's really good.
It kind of seems like it. They also say that the percentage of younger age groups and families would significantly higher, and quote, the title is contributing significantly to a widening of the user base through the acquisition of new users and the expansion of our title portfolio. And I think that's interesting. We'll go through all this stuff and talk about it in a second. Yeah. On Helldiver 2's success and Concord's failure, Sony says, we intend to share the lessons learned from our successes and failures across our studios, including in the areas of title development management, as well as the process of continually adding expanded content and scaling the service after its release, so as to strengthen our development management system. We intend to build an optimal title portfolio during the current mid-range plan period that combines single-player games, which are our strength, and which have a higher predictability of becoming hits due to our proven IP, with live service games that pursue upside while taking a certain amount of risk upon release. Sony also said that starting with Ghost of Yotai, they plan to release major single-player titles every year from the next fiscal year onward. You know, Japan's fiscal year runs from April to March, and I believe they were talking about the Japanese fiscal year.
Okay.
Which I assume means, because we don't know Yotai's release date yet, so I assume that means it's not going to release at the earliest. It'll be April 1st, 2025. If it's going to be in the next fiscal year. So, but it could be wrong. Maybe they do push that up. Maybe that's just speculation on my part.
That's also interesting because that's a tug of war between both sides of the ocean. Like, if you release Ghosts during like April, that's kind of their like spring, like the spring season, and like a game like Ghosts fits that aesthetic during that like time frame. You know what I mean? But then of course, obviously you can't ignore fall. Like you can't ignore the fall holiday season, and that's very important too. So I can definitely see both sides, but it just really sucks because when you think about 2025, you do have the looming threat of Grand Theft Auto 6.
Has that not been pushed back to 2026?
No, it probably will. I don't doubt that it will, but one of the bigger like heads at Rockstar still said it's 2025.
Okay. Yeah. Which you definitely wouldn't want to if you're going to release a big single player title, you definitely want it to be a few months before GTA 6.
GTA 6 is, whether we like it or not, going to be the biggest game. Like,
yeah,
since GTA 5. Arguably Red Dead Redemption 2. But yeah, like if you don't want to be another Horizon and be in the way of Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. Like, if you plan to release your game at any point around that time frame, you good luck.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because I truly believe you can release multiple things on a day and people will buy what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you do also, with a game like that, have a higher probability of people ignoring your title as well, because everybody's talking like, you got to get this game.
That's what's generating the conversation.
So yeah.
So I would agree with that.
Take-Two CEO did reaffirm fall 2026 or 2025. Sorry,
2025 for GT. Yeah. So if I'm PlayStation and I have a single, then I'm definitely releasing that as soon as possible. Because if that drags into July, August, then it's like, okay, well, now we have to worry about GTA 6. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why don't we,
and that's interesting.
I would say release I'm stating something obvious here. You want to release Yotai as soon as possible, clearly, because you don't want to compete with GTA 6. Yeah.
But I do think that Sony has a leg up with Grand Theft Auto, because I think I feel people still do see Grand Theft Auto as a PlayStation franchise, quote unquote. Because I mean, even today, you kind of had that problem with some other franchises like Call of Duty. Like, sure, it gets marketing a lot on PlayStation, but I still, it feels like an Xbox title. Yeah. So it depends on how people look at those things.
And I mean, just because I read the Wall Street Journal like a month or two ago, they released that video about the Xbox Series.
Those SJWs. I'm kidding. Same letters. It just means I'm dyslexic. That's all.
No,
dyslexics on tie.
Yeah, there we go.
Definitely SJWs at Wall Street Journal covering dividends for billionaires and other stakeholders in multi-trillion-dollar companies. No,
owned by Bezos.
Owned by No, what was I going to say? So the PS5 has outsold the Xbox right now, like a 2-to-1 margin.
Oh yeah.
So basically, at this point, every big release, just by virtue of there being double the number of PS5s in the wild, is going to do better on PlayStation, because there's just a bigger PlayStation market. So every big game is great for PlayStation. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't want that to cannibalize your own investment into your own property.
Right.
Yeah, so you want to release that as soon as possible. I appreciate what they're saying here. I don't know if Sony has said something like this in the past. Maybe they have in other quarterly calls. I don't know. But where they outwardly say our strength is our first party IPs, our first party single player IPs. Because I think that's something that we have talked about for years, that is Sony's strength, and that is why they are in their position right now. So why are they messing around with this live service bullshit? And so here is the first time I can remember a Sony exec, which I forget who specifically said this. It wasn't Herman Holst or
I think it was one of Sony Japan's people, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of Sony Japan's people. But if it weren't true, he wouldn't. I assume he wouldn't have said it. If this wasn't in line with the company's strategy, they weren't going to say it. But I feel like that's an obvious thing to say, and it's a true thing to say. So I'm glad that Sony's saying it, and maybe that marks an acknowledgement of what they are as a company. Yeah. I don't know. That would be my hope. Obviously, companies are ephemeral and they change plans
always,
all the time. But yeah, after Concord, after their sort of so far fledgling move into the mobile space, after the problems that they've had with Destiny, I feel like, you got here, you are selling PS5s partially because of your single player IPs.
Yes.
So it's like that's the strength that you need to lean into. and I feel like that's obvious, and I'm glad that they're saying it.
And they also, I'm glad they're saying it, but it also they run they're walking on a tightrope here, and they have to be careful because we want to see more of their first party IPs that we haven't seen. With Astrobot and how well that game does, or what that game has done, Astrobot has a lot of things going for it. Very cute, very likable mascot. Gameplay is excellent. Of course, a lot of it is leaning on the nostalgia of some PlayStation properties, but with that comes the ask of those PlayStation properties, at least in the newer format. I think that Astrobot has shown that Sony can do both. They can have their Last of Us, and they can have their Astrobot. So I wish they would have kept Firewalk around, because once again, I said this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. It's like they could have gave them Killzone. They could have gave them
something.
Resistance. Yep. They could have given them something. Because apparently the game did play well. But you also have to, and so the tightrope walking is resting on your laurels and digging into your first party games and releasing those and making them. But you can't, because that's what they do best. But you also have to find a way to future proof yourself.
Sure.
And so you do need to ride the wave of what is working right now in the industry. But get off on the wrong foot, which they already have, unfortunately.
I don't. I'm obviously not a huge fan of live service stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that style of making games, of that philosophy of game, of video games. But I understand the financial necessity of it. But when you mortgage your strength to do something like that, that's when it bothers me. Like, for example, I know a lot of people would probably disagree with me here, but I think Dragon Age Veilguard, part of the reason that maybe it struggled, part of its development struggles, part of a bunch of stuff, was because that suddenly BioWare had to make Anthem, right? Now, why did that happen? It's complicated. It was not Andrew Wilson telling BioWare, make a live service looter shooter. It's not that simple. But the environment where Anthem came into existence was not a vacuum. It was affected by certain market forces that I think could have been changed had you had executives and decision makers that weren't cowards. And it impacted games like Dragon Age Veilguard. So, in a similar sense, they released Concord. Concord is this thing that's like, I don't think it was a good idea from the get-go. It fails, and they cancel it. So it's like, what resources were poured into Concord that could have been poured into other areas that definitely would have been successful, I don't know. But that's like part of my thought process here. When they talk about the expansion of their title portfolio with Astrobot, that comes across, I don't want to read too much into a couple words, but that comes across to me like they're saying, hey, maybe we got something here with Astrobot, which was your thought, my thought, which a bunch of people thought was like, holy shit, make this a franchise. Give us a sequel to Astrobot, because this is great. It's a lot of fun.
You either do that or do what they have been doing a lot more recently, is re-release those games. Release those older games on your new service that you have, because apparently PS2 and PS1 emulation is good enough to throw games on a PS5. So make some deals with those publishers or those developers, publishers, and re-release some games.
Yeah. Sony's in a good spot. I think they've tried some things that hasn't succeeded, and so a lot of the news regarding Sony has been negative. But it's weird. It's like they're a team up by 42 points and their quarterback just threw, 2 straight interceptions. But it's like, but you're still up by 42, so you're gonna be fine.
They're on the 2-yard line.
Yeah, let's make this as
He
complicated.
can, no. They're on the 2-yard line. You can punch it in real quick, but instead you're going to go for a throw during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, instead of giving it to Marshawn Lynch
and let him just punch it
and
in.
let him punch it in, you're just gonna try and make a throw, and Malcolm Butler is gonna be wearing a Phil Spencer T-shirt and a blazer, and he's just gonna pick it off, and Richard Sherman's gonna be pissed off and go buy an Xbox One X.
Seahawks references will never get old, I swear to God.
The thing about can I just talk a little bit about that play?
Go ahead.
Because
Okay.
Or an hour in, it's fine.
it's such a good bit of broadcast, because I think Chris Collinsworth is really good for NBC, and it's such a good bit of broadcasting, because I think sometimes, especially in big moments, broadcasters, I don't know, they may pull punches or something like that, because you never want to be the guy that's like, that's a bad play call. Because when you say that, there's so much goes into a play call that it's, you know, you don't want to come off as like a tacky guy that you just didn't like the play, as opposed to it being a bad play. But Chris Collinsworth's job breaking that down instantly is so good. Because if you go back and watch the broadcast, he's just like, and Al, I have to tell you, if Marshawn Lynch can't get it in from the 1-yard line, so be it. And it was just, that's such a good, maybe it was an obvious thing to do, I don't know, but I just thought it was such a good follow-up to like that moment where everybody was just like, what? For him to sort of give credit to everybody on the couch watching the TV and say, America, no, you are correct, America. Real quick. Anyway, enough about that, doesn't matter. So Helldivers 2 and Concord, I think, because they talked about both of them and how one was successful and one was different, I think it's important to remember that they're two completely different games.
Yeah, absolutely.
That with different markets. One is co-op, one can be played more casually. Sure, they are both live service games, but when you play Helldivers 2, if I jumped in now, I could jump in on an easy difficulty and I'd be fine, right? Whereas multiplayer games, if I jumped into Overwatch right now, I have to learn like, okay, well, what hero am I going to play? What do the other heroes do? How do I play Mercy again? How do I play Reinhardt? Like, how do I move around the map differently? Like, you have to relearn all that because it's a multiplayer game. You can't just casually. Sure, you can casually run around and stuff, but if you want to play like the game at its like fullest form, you have to learn a bunch of shit. You can't drop in and drop out like you can with Helldivers 2. So I don't know. It bothers me a bit that they like consider them the same game, because if you know both games, you know the genres, you know they're completely different. And one of the reasons that Helldivers 2 succeeded is because of that difference. You don't need that same sort of investment with a co-op shooter like Helldivers 2.
Right.
Which is a game I really miss. We should all play it sometime soon. Anyway.
Also, it's strange because like Helldivers 2, like, I don't want to call it a fluke, but its perception nowadays as like kind of a not free to play, but like a live service title is kind of the antithesis of like what a live service title should be.
I see what you're getting.
Because it's like, even before that, I never really, I think it was like the week it was coming out, we got I felt I got the information of like, oh yeah, the seasons will be free or whatever, you'll get all this stuff. I never thought of it as like a live service game like Overwatch or Path of Exile, stuff like that. Destiny, yes, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just got their full with Helldivers 2. You played the missions, you played with your friends, you unlocked a bunch of stuff, you upgraded your soldier, and then you're like, okay, I've had fun, I'm moving on. I think that kind of happened. But anyway, is there anything else we want to say here about PlayStation? Yeah, this was really interesting, and I hope that they stick to that one single player game per fiscal year. Obviously, I don't know if that's realistic.
I don't know. Gamers don't want single player games,
but
they don't want crossplay either.
Yeah,
but
do it for the kids.
That gives me hope, because that is their strength, and they have the studios and the talent for it.
Yes,
and I'm really excited to learn what Housemarque is making right now. I would be so disappointed if Housemarque is making some multiplayer thing, because if you remember, Housemarque they made Nex Machina,
Next Machina, God,
which was a fun
awesome.
game, awesome soundtrack. And then they were going to go out of business, or something bad was going to happen. Because I remember at the time they were like, people don't play these types of games anymore. Uh-huh. So they went at the time. They were going to make a battle royale game because it was a big battle royale boom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was really sad because I was like, oh man, Housemarque is so cool and they make such cool. Now they're making battle royale, and then they got bought up by PlayStation. They go radio silent, and then bam, Returnal. It's like hell yeah. So which Returnal was like third person Next Machina, which is awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that game isn't talked about much anymore. Excellent title.
It really when we. Sorry, my data brain just kind of...
It falls prey to being a launch title.
Yeah, it does. It does.
When we talk about the best launch games of all time, I think Returnal's pretty good.
I think Returnal will be there, yeah.
All things considering, I don't know, you're better at history than I am.
A little bit. Sorry.
Let me talk about sports. I mean, we'll see who's better.
It was either 64 or Super Nintendo only had 2 launch titles. It was Mario 64 and Pilot Wings.
So what were the launch titles for the Xbox? Do you remember?
Oh God,
Halo?
Halo, yes.
Okay.
Azuric, Crimson Skies.
Crimson Skies was a popular one. I remember.
Tetris Worlds.
And then what about for the PS3 and 360?
360 was Dead or Alive 5 or Dead or Alive 4, yeah. Ghost Recon, Advanced Warfighter.
Mm-hmm.
360 had Call of Duty 2.
Cameo was launch title. Yeah, Call of Duty 2 Condemned.
Done.
And 3.
Peter Jackson, King Kong, yeah. Perfect Dark Zero, Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Quake 4, which Quake 4 was the Quake when they were like, let's make this as cinematic as possible.
Condemned Criminal Origins.
The game's so good.
And Perfect Dark Zero was also very good.
You sure about that?
I remember it being pretty good.
I thought it was fine.
Okay. Now the Xbox, and then you got into the Xbox One and Xbox One, PS4.
Yeah.
They didn't have great launch titles.
No, most of them were not crossovers, multi-platform ones.
Yeah.
I still like Rise Son of Rome. I do think it is like a fine title. It's not going to blow you away, but it's entertaining.
The larger point I was making is in terms of, I think
Infamous and Killzone.
I think launch titles have a reputation of being like usually okay.
Yeah.
But I think Returnal was really good.
Yes, I do too.
Like a really good game that I need to go back to, that I would love to go back to one day. Okay, sorry. Is there anything else we want to mention about PlayStation before we...
No, I'm good.
Connor's looking at the launch titles of every console ever
made, yeah.
What's the launch title for PC? Find that. Breaking Nazi matrix codes. That's the launch title for the PC.
I mean, if you really want to get into the weeds, computers existed before then.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was like big church bells that were punch cards.
Okay, so what, the Crusades would be the launch title?
It would be more like 15th century, so...
So, what, Martin Luther? The launch title was Martin Luther's 95 Thesis. That was the launch title. He was like, indulgences, fuck that shit. That was the launch title. And IGN was like, 8 out of 10, I hate indulgences as well. Goes on a little too long. Probably doesn't have to be 95 Theses. But anyway. Okay, sorry, stupid joke. Warner Bros. Games is underperforming. This is according to David Zaslav. That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Who spoke about this on WB's recent third quarter earnings call. I'm going to read a quote here. But even in an industry of hits and misses, we must acknowledge that our studio's business, which includes games, must deliver more consistently. This applies to our games business, which we recognize is substantially underperforming its potential right now. We have 4 strong and profitable game franchises with loyal global fans: Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, in particular Batman. We are focusing on our development efforts on those 4 core franchises with proven studios to improve our success ratio. Zaslav then spoke about the inconsistency at their motion picture studio and specifically mentioned Joker 2. CFO Gunnar Weidenfels then spoke about WB's financials, saying the studio's performance in the quarter was subpar relative to their internal expectations. And he said, quote, results were impacted by games for which we took another $100 million plus impairment due to the Underperforming releases primarily multiverses this quarter, bringing total write-down year-to-date to over $300 million in our games business. The key factor in this year's studio's profit decline. In quarter 4, we expect games to be flat to modestly better year over year, as last year's launch of Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch platform in November is offset by lower costs. Richard, why were you shaking your head? I mean, do you just not like David Zaslav?
I hate that motherfucker. But no, just the we have 4 strong and profitable game title franchises, and then proceeds to name 3 of them. Because I don't know when the last fucking Game of Thrones game was released, but I can tell you it was not profitable.
It was probably a mobile game.
Probably, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's been a lot of advertisements for that mobile game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably that one.
I assume he's including mobile in that formula. But.
Yeah, because that mobile game right there, I saw gameplay of it, and I was like, oh, it's literally like those types of games. Every single one of them is a literal copy and paste.
Yeah,
a literal copy and paste of the ones that came before it. I don't know what the first one to do with it was.
The old browser-based ones. Yeah.
So
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones Conquest.
It's
don't play it.
Yeah, it's like RTS for like kids.
I assume it's packed with microtransactions.
It's base build. Yes, it's base building, and then you send out an army to go like fight something,
like
and then
Clash
they
of
come
Clans?
back. Yeah, pretty much
exactly.
All that stuff.
That's what it is. Yeah,
I've never played Clash of Clans. I just know that's kind of how Clash of Clans works. But okay, yeah, I don't like David Zaslav either. And the thing, so it's like I don't know. Their games business, yeah. Mortal Kombat is obviously a big one. It's a heavy hitter. And
yes.
I think the reaction to Mortal Kombat 1 was pretty positive.
At first,
I'm not really in the Mortal Kombat world, so I can't really, talk with authority on that. Hogwarts Legacy was obviously
huge success.
Hugely successful because it filled a fantasy that so many people had for such a long time.
Yes.
So does that create a franchise? We don't know. Does that mean Harry Potter video games are suddenly super popular? We don't know. I think it's just as likely that people played it because, hey, I finally have a game where I can, and a wizard RPG where you're at, where that people have wanted for 20 years. And so they played that. I don't know if that's indicative of a new, huge thing that a ton of people are going to get into, or just sort of a spur of the moment, a one-time thing. And then, I don't know. But obviously, sequels are usually pretty successful, so that could be it. Yeah, Richard, I think you're dead on with Game of Thrones. There hasn't been... And part of the problem with Game of Thrones is that nobody gives a shit about the TV series anymore. And that's all due respect to...
House of Dragons still has a pretty good following.
Yeah, and people like it, but it's... And I don't know whether it's good or bad.
It doesn't have the same cultural impact that Game of Thrones did.
No. And Game of Thrones ended so poorly that people joke, but I really do think there is something to it killing the zeitgeist around Game of Thrones because it ended so poorly. It completely shattered any chances of
the names of
it becoming a bigger franchise, or maybe
the names of the two really big showrunners that were
David. Their both names are David. I don't remember.
Yeah. Because they were going to work on a Star Wars project, and then they kind of just let Game of Thrones fall to the wayside, and then they got dropped from that Star Wars project because of that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's officially true.
I don't know if it's directly correlated, but
the timeline fits.
Yeah, and then with DC, I think that's interesting because it's in particular Batman. Well, the studio that was making Batman games for so long, for some reason, did a Suicide Squad live service game, Zaslav, David. So, David, what happened there, David? Explain to me that, David. And then the newest Batman game, as much as I love VR, is a Quest 3 exclusive. David, what the fuck's going on? I don't know. It bothers me because it's and again, he's probably also including mobile games in there. But it's just you do have this huge IP that could fit a bunch of games. Patricia Hernandez just wrote a piece in Polygon this week about why, how come there hasn't been an amazing Superman game? How do we not have a cool Superman game? How? We have Spider-Man. We've got fucking other superheroes, that I can't think of at the moment. But it's we had Batman, we have Spider-Man, and Superman is the biggest superhero. Why don't we have a Superman game? That's a WB property. So it's just like, okay, it just bothers me because it feels
I think it comes like honestly, I do think it comes from a writing perspective of like adaptation. Spider-Man, Batman, those are very like grounded characters. There's like Spider-Man has powers, yes, but
I don't know. I think you could do it. I get that it's difficult.
You would have to strip Superman of his powers to make it interesting.
You'd have to find a way to strip him of his powers.
Here's what you do. You create a villain. You create an original villain who injects himself with an experimental drug that makes him and his lackeys strong enough to fight Superman. There you go.
That's indirectly stripping him of his powers.
It's true.
Okay.
It's kind of
okay. But, I mean, that's what you have to do if you're a video game. Like,
well, but it's less of it comes down more to, does it make a good video game?
I think it could. Yeah. I'm
not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it would take a lot of work, and I don't think WB wants to invest that into it.
I guess we're in agreement on that. Because the point I was trying to make here was that DC has all this property. It has the studios, but for some reason they did other shit, and now they're in this weird spot. And so it bothers me that we're talking about DC, including Batman, and it's like, well, you could have done a whole lot more with that over the past few years, but you haven't, David. So it just bothers me a little bit. I don't know.
I just want to bring up real quick because since we were talking about like their IPs, the related games section for the Game of Thrones game on WB's website. None of them are Game of Thrones games. You got Middle Earth, you got Injustice, Mortal Kombat, and Mortal Kombat Mobile.
Mobile.
The 2 mobile games, and then 2.
Do they or no? Embracer now has the. Who owns the Lord of the Rings game? Does somebody own the rights to like make games now? Would that be Embracer? I don't know. That's not a question we need to look up.
Yeah.
It's probably super complicated, and who knows. Have you guys played Multiverses?
No.
I gotta say, I started up Multiverses, and it made me feel a little icky.
Okay.
It starts off with this it starts off with this video where Velma is fighting Bugs Bunny.
The cutscene, the opening cutscene.
The cutscene, and it's just so forced and unnatural. And I was trying to think, okay, Tyler, why is Smash Bros. Okay, right? And maybe Smash Bros. Isn't totally okay. I don't know. Should Joker be in there? Should Snake be in there? I don't know. But at the same time, like, I don't feel like Smash Bros. Started as like like the Iron Giant, LeBron James. Like these things that aren't real properties or aren't well remembered. They're just things WB owns.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Where, I don't know, at least with like Smash Bros. Back in the day, all the characters, not only were they in each other's games and somewhat related to one another or something, but it was also like
all prominent Nintendo IPs.
They were all prominent and well remembered with relative to their respective spots, right? And in video games. Where like Scooby-Doo isn't. It's well remembered, but you don't think of Velma, oh, she fights. Like, you just don't think that.
Yeah.
Where every character, most characters in Smash Bros, they have some kind of ability to fight. Mario can at least punch and jump and things like that.
Yeah.
Luigi is the same thing, So, I don't know. I thought about that, and I also grappled with, okay, what makes Astrobot different? And I'll say I think there is a little bit of just like vacuous brand recognition in Astrobot. I think there's a little bit of that. But I think Astrobot rises above that by being really creative and having ridiculous art direction and really good gameplay. And also it's a love letter to PlayStation, right? Yes. And not all the games are games that are in like circulation right now and stuff like that. So anyway, the reason I brought that up because I hadn't played Multiverses and I launched it, and it just felt so icky because it's free to play, so you got all the free to play economics there, and it felt so forced, like Batman and Shaggy fighting side by side. It just didn't work. It felt like an executive's idea of a branding thing, but that's what we get now with like Fortnite, where everything is just a fucking commercial.
Which with you know, with them owning DC, there's all the characters you need for a fighting game.
Yeah.
And you could call it
Yeah.
Injustice.
Yeah.
Who knows? And you could have an evil There's a way you could have a Superman game, evil Superman against normal Superman.
you go.
We make this game Injustice. We could have two of them, and Injustice 2 would be amazing.
And there are genres that those heroes can fit into that can do very well. People forget, but DC Universe still has a somewhat successful MMO continuing on right now, the DC Universe Online.
It's still going.
It's still going. Yeah, it's still going pretty all right. But on top of that, like they made Justice League Heroes for the PS2 and PSP and Xbox, and which was it was Diablo, but with Justice League characters, you know, just like Marvel Ultimate Alliance was. And it's like, great, cool, do that. No, everybody wants to make money, so they're not being experimental. They're being safe, quote unquote. So
yeah, WB is yeah. And I was curious if they would take a lesson from the Hogwarts Legacy being being the best-selling game of the year.
But we've talked about it before. They're not going to take the right points made from that game being successful, you know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can tell you that probably a large reason why that game was successful is only because its age group was slightly higher. Like the game looked and felt a little more adult than Harry Potter generally is.
Oh, really?
In my opinion.
Okay.
Just visually and, but also, once again, first time you can experience the Harry Potter world without being one of the main characters.
Yeah.
You made your own character and you went in and did your own thing. So that's exciting too.
And without it being a mobile game.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you got strangled by vines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they do that again, but just make everything better, yeah, they'll be successful, I'm sure. But I don't know if it'll be as successful as the first time around.
I don't know. I'd flip the coin on that one. I don't know.
I would flip the coin on that one because I do have to also take into I don't know why I think about this so hard. I do have to take into account the people who bought Hogwarts Legacy who aren't gamers.
No.
And wanted to try their very first time.
Yes.
And maybe they liked it. Maybe they got into games more. And maybe they will play the second one. But maybe they just said, I enjoyed that. And that's enough video games for me.
Maybe.
You know? And
there are certain, like, Red Dead Redemption is one of those titles where a lot of people that don't normally play video games play the shit out of it.
that's true, yes.
And then, Hogwarts Legacy was that game where you go into a GameStop and the people walk in and they say, do you have the Harry Potter game? Right? Mm-hmm. So it's like they don't know what it's called. They just know it's this property that they like, that they watch the movies and read the books. And you can finally do, like, you know, the create your own character in the Harry Potter world. Anyway, okay. You have a store story?
I do have a store story.
It's a Richard
I'll look through it. I'll tell you what I give you. That's how this works.
store story.
Forgot I had that sounder. And when I was like, oh, I got a store story, you know, earlier today, and I was like, oh, do I have a sounder for that? I can't remember. Like,
We got you covered.
that's great. Thank you. It was awesome. This is a good store story. I like this one. I had a lady call me a couple days ago, and I could already tell when she started speaking. Very old woman, totally cool. But she was like, hey, I play a ton of video games. And she's like, and I know that's weird, an old lady playing video games. And I immediately cut her off and I was like, no, that's incredible. Please continue doing it. Like, let's keep going. Like, I have all of these PC games. She's like, I have tons of them. I have a couple like rows on my wall filled with them. She's like, and I don't need them anymore. She's like, because I've moved on to Steam. I've moved on to, you know, VR. And she's like, I'm a big VR person. I was like, great, awesome, you know. And she's like, well, do you guys take them? And I was like, no, I don't. And we usually don't take them because one-time use codes, serial numbers, compatibility issues, et cetera. I was like, we just don't, you know. And I was like, well, I can name, you know, tell you to go to a couple places and try your luck there. And she started talking and she's like, okay, well, she's like, I really want to find somebody to give these to, like whether they buy them off me or not, because otherwise I'll throw them away. And I was like, no, please don't do that. I was like, well, you know, I don't take them generally, but I can't stand here and have you throw those away. And I just gave her a little blurb about, because, you know, once you throw them away, they're gone, like the preservation. So I was like, I'll tell you what, you gather all your games together, bring them into my store. I'll give you something for them, and I'll do whatever with them afterwards. And she's like, oh, are you sure? I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Just bring them on in. She's like, okay, well, she's like, she was explaining to me, she has all the serial numbers either like written in them like a couple times, or she has the sticker still, or she has it on a like Excel sheet or whatnot. She's like, I'll gather them all and I'll bring them in. I was like, okay, great. And so she came in a couple days ago, and she had 2 boxes full of them. But yeah, she had them all in their boxes with their codes and everything. And I was like, well, for these 2, I was like, I give you $120 or whatever. And she's like, that's more than enough, thank you. And I was like, here you go. We had a really nice chat and everything. She left, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just sell these at the store. So I just have like a small PC section, but I'm very like, I'm not going to take anymore. I'm just taking these because I don't want them thrown away.
Yeah.
So, but she had, I mean, I said to T in the chat, she had Halo 2. She had, she had, all the Call of Duty. She had Prey. She had Prey, the original Prey.
For PC.
For PC, yeah.
They don't sell that anymore.
They don't sell that anymore, no. But it doesn't go for much, actually. It's like $20. But they don't sell the digital code yet. The digital code, if you find that, like the Steam code, like that's like a couple $100.
Wow.
As far as I'm aware. Though she had all the like really low tier World War II shooters. And she had like, you know, those marksman games, like the Marine marksman games. Like they're all like, yeah. She had a chunk of the Call of Duty games. She had Call of Duty, the original. She had original Call of Duty. So I got a good selection of PC games at my store now. Fairly cheap. None of them really over $20. But she had Half-Life 1 Episode 1.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she had it was the standalone of that, and I was like, this is cool. So
that's freaking awesome.
So yeah, so I was very happy that she brought those in, and she said she had more. That's just all she got together at that point in time, and I was like, well, great. Yeah, I'll take the rest if you bring them in. So
you're doing God's work, preservation.
A little bit. I just know I'm gonna.
Maybe I'll come in and buy them.
Sure, if you want. A lot of them. There's a handful of. I got to where like it was like Far Cry 2, 3, 4, 5, and I was like, $5 each. Because I don't want to like, what are these going for? Because I know they're like so common, you know. And I did that with a couple others, but I like Black Ops 2 is like $20. Prey is like $20. Most of them were under $20. So
interesting. That's cool.
But they're all in excellent condition. And yeah, she had Quake 4. And I opened it up, and she wrote the serial number on the disc, and she wrote it on the book. And I was like, great, she's covering her bases. So that's cool.
Awesome.
No, it was really nice. Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Thanks.
That's not, yeah, man. That stuff kind of scares me. I don't know, with PC games, because there's so many of them just don't, like, at least with console games, you have discs, you know?
Yeah.
Even if they're all kind of tough to find. But there's so many PC games because of Steam that just have zero.
Yeah.
Squad does not exist outside of Steam. Like, it just doesn't. And so in 20 years, there's not going to be an old lady who has a disc of Squad because it doesn't exist at all. It never has, never will.
Right.
And so, man, that's just scary to think about how that'll go. Yeah. And I don't know, if you were to preserve like the old Half-Life, I'm sure people have the technical knowledge to get it running somehow.
Of course.
So at least it's possible, but like, yeah, well, you're doing God's work.
Yeah. I was more stoked to see the weird one-off.
Yeah, that's
like,
awesome.
Dumb shooters. Cause yeah, I would flip behind it. It's just like the really, I don't want to call it low poly. It's above that, but it's not really good looking and it's fun to see.
Low poly plus.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of discount Rainbow Sixes and discount Ghost Recons.
Yeah.
Like obviously Delta Force was the discount.
Yeah, Delta Force,
was the discount Ghost Recon.
Yeah, I'm sure Spec Ops before the Spec Ops the line, like a lot of the Spec Ops games were like pretty not throwaway, but there's a lot of them.
And those sniper games, did the cover look like Tom Berenger? Because I remember there being. Because Tom Berenger obviously one of his famous movie series is Sniper, the cheesy action movie. Yeah. But I remember seeing games where they like did that thing where it was an actor that looked like Tom Berenger, but it wasn't him. You know,
they had the same motif. Which one? I can tell you that much. She had the Medal of Honors as well. She had Medal of Honor Airborne, and she had the Pacific one.
I think it's just Medal of Honor Pacific.
Yeah, and then she had an expansion.
Pacific Assault, I think.
Yes, Pacific Assault. And then she had an expansion to one of them. I was like, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, she had the Rainbow Sixes. She had Ghost Recon. I mean, they were fairly common, but I was, once again,
maybe I'll have to come in and take a look.
The Crisis, she had all the Crisis games.
There's Allied Assault.
Medal of Honor,
Rising
Pacific.
Sun?
Well, the Rising Sun was the PS2 game.
That's right.
There were
was
a couple.
PC.
Yes, there was a couple of PC exclusives.
Yeah, Medal of Honor, Rising Sun. That was the one that started with Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Pacific Assault or something, but that one I don't think started with Pearl Harbor, but I could be wrong. Pacific Assault. Yep. There you go. Do you want to doubt me again, or do you want to doubt my Medal of Honor knowledge? I mean,
Yeah, I will.
yeah. You know what the worst Medal of Honor is? Probably Medal of Honor Airborne. That one.
I still have never played that one.
It has a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know the concept.
Yeah, you're one of the parachuters
and
or
so
paratroopers.
and so levels are sort of open, and that's how the level starts. Is you parachute into the level, and then you kind of land somewhere, and you go do your objectives.
I always wanted to play it due to principle because I've played all the other ones before it.
Okay.
I love Underground.
I've never played the PS1.
It's rough. Obviously, It's a PS1 one. The first two are really rough, but I don't know. There's just something endearing about them. And of course, the PS2 trilogy is really good. But I've once again never played Pacific Assault, and I've never played Allied Assault either.
Allied Assault, because that was the one that's only on PC. Allied Assault's really good. That one. That's the one that begins with... it kind of feels like Inglourious Bastards, because you're sneaking into a town under the cover of darkness, and the Germans think that you're in the back of a truck, and the Germans don't know you're there. So it's like you're trying to sneak past German lines.
That's cool.
And there's a truck behind you, and there's this awesome scene where the guy, one of the German guards, asks for the driver's papers, and you're sitting with and for the truck behind you, and in your truck you're sitting with other Army Rangers, and you're like, is he gonna get past the guard? And the guard's looking and the guard tells him to get out of the car, and so it's oh shit, and the driver shoots the German guard, and you guys pull out of the truck, and it's oh fuck it, we just gotta so cool. We gotta just blow our cover. It's such a cool little scene where they're trying to sneak in, but the it goes wrong, and you just have to shoot your way into a base. Such a cool little intro. But anyway, do we have some tidbits?
I got a couple I could just shoot off real quick.
Yeah, we're at an hour and a half, so let's shoot them off.
Nice. Oh, let's see
we got
here.
to do this tidbit.
Oh my God.
We're not going to not do the tidbits.
What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits?
An explosion of some sort. Overwatch is back, guys.
Sure.
Oh, the classic.
Overwatch Classic is coming back as a limited time event starting on November 12th. You get the original hero roster and the original 6v6, but it's 1.0. So Mercy Rezzing, all fives coming back.
Wow.
Torb coming back. All the bullshit's coming back. Can't wait. Can't wait. But somebody made a joke about how knowing Tracer players are just going to walk in there like nothing's ever happened, because nothing's ever happened to Tracer. It's been the same ever since. But yeah.
I do miss me some Tracer, that's for sure.
Classic Overwatch is back. This is a little longer, but this is the last one I got. Capcom updated its platinum titles list. It's what they call the platinum titles list, providing sales figures as of September 30th, 2024. This is the updated list for Resident Evil franchises or titles. So I'm going to go from 19 down, and then probably at 10, I'll start mentioning how many they sold. 19 is Umbrella Chronicles, 18 Resident Evil Outbreak, 17 Code Veronica, 16 Operation Raccoon City, can't believe it, 15 Resident Evil 3, the original, 14 Resident Evil 2, the original, 13 Revelations 2, 12 is the original Resident Evil, 11 is Resident Evil Revelations, number 10 is Resident Evil 0 at 5.6 million. Number 9 is Resident Evil Remake at 5.8 million. Resident Evil 4 at 8 million. Resident Evil 4 Remake at 8 million. Resident Evil 3 Remake at 9.2 million. Damn, more than 4 Remake. Crazy. Number 6, Resident Evil Village at 10.5 million. Number 5, Resident Evil 4 at 13.5 million. 6, 13.8 million. 7, 14 million. At number 2 is Resident Evil 2 Remake at 14.5 million. And number 1 is Resident Evil 5 at 15.1 million.
How is that possible?
I'll tell you why.
People want to punch boulders, all right?
Yes, they do. 4 was so good that everybody was like, I can't wait for 5. And then they're like, hey, 5 has
4
co-op.
so good.
5 has co-op. You're
and
right.
everybody was like,
Makes
holy
sense.
shit, Resident
Yep.
Evil with co-op. They sold it. And guess what? Resident Evil 5 Love is coming back, baby.
Still the worst game.
RE5
No, it's not.
remake.
Get out of here.
I don't
Get
want to
outta
hear
here.
it.
Go
The
play
zombies, shotguns. I don't want to hear it.
Go play 6
Okay.
and come back. They weren't zombies this time, right? It was a
And I
parasite.
guess
They were highly
shooting in
evolved.
Resident Evil 4
so
too, but
they were.
Yeah.
so I don't know, whatever. But
RE5 remake with 6 extra boulder punching scenes.
he literally
Yes.
punches a boulder.
Yeah.
How would that accomplish anything?
Hey, it was the only way between him and Sheva, all right?
And he had to punch the shit out of that boulder.
Yeah, he did.
I knew people who could press A so quickly it looked like their hand wasn't moving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like breaking the space-time continuum
Yeah,
by
yeah.
just mashing the
yeah.
A button. And he would do his like George Foreman undercut on this gigantic rock. Anyway, follow us.
See, with the like little extra bits they do in the remakes, there's going to be a Mike Tyson punch out scene for
Right.
boulder punching.
Yeah, there's going to be like a boulder punching mini game where it's just like third person boulders are coming down and you have to like.
Do you remember the minor controversy about Resident Evil 5 being racist?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because all the enemies were minorities, and it just felt really strange. Anyway, we don't have to talk about Resident Evil 5 anymore. The worst Resident Evil ever made. Period. End of story.
Go play 6. Go ahead, just telling you, go play 6.
Follow us youtube.com/gaming discourse, patreon.com/the gaming discourse, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.